Welcome to another episode of Car Talk. Today I want to talk about why gentleness has become my approach and how that relates to the book The Master and His Emissary by Ian McGilchrist, which I've been reading now for probably, 13 days, and I'll probably be reading it for another 13 days. It's so long. Anyway, gentleness was not my natural strategy. Quite the opposite. I've been very self-abusive throughout my life. Dangerously so. And coming to the point of embracing gentleness as my primary mode of engagement has been a dramatic shift. And it didn't happen by accident. It happened through education. The more that I learn about the brain, the more that I realize that I am not consciously responsible for the vast majority of my actions, thoughts, and feelings. And that with some training, with some practice, and with an understanding of how the brain and body work together, or at least what we know at this point, I can start to affect thought, feeling, and behavior a little bit at a time, and eventually develop a character that is quite different than the character that I just woke up as. And where this book, The Master and His Emissary, fits into the conversation today, he's discussing the differences in the hemispheres related to consciousness. So how much does the right hemisphere contribute to consciousness, and how much does the left hemisphere contribute to consciousness, or at least our experience of consciousness? Each hemisphere has a consciousness, and they're independent. They get blended together to some degree to create our experience of now and of being, but their contributions are not equal. And what the research points to is that the right hemisphere, the embodied hemisphere, contributes a lot less to conscious experience than the left does. So what we consider to be consciousness is largely a left hemispheric processing. And this may have changed over the course of recent history with the rise of the written word and speaking and the evolution of language. That we now rely more heavily on the left hemisphere to do our conscious processing because we are so dependent on language as we think. That's not always been the case. So anyway, the point is that consciousness, according to estimates, is quite a bit less than 5% of what the brain does. And a lot of neuroscientists believe it's even less than 1%. So most of what your brain is up to, you're not aware of. So how this relates to gentleness is that even though the left hemisphere is dominant for conscious processing, the right hemisphere is dominant for unconscious and pre-conscious processing, which means that the right hemisphere creates the framework for the left hemisphere to process. So it's like going to play a game on a field. Somebody had to level the field, somebody had to mow the grass, somebody had to paint the lines on the field, put up the goals, provide the balls, the uniforms, etc. And then the left hemisphere just comes along and plays the game. And it doesn't just play the game, but it plays the game as a single individual on the field playing the game with a very self-centric perspective. But the right hemisphere set the whole thing up. And the left just shows up as the central figure that wants to win the game without any understanding of all the work that went into creating the possibility of playing that game. So when I look out at the world consciously and I try to make sense of it, really what I'm doing is making sense of what my right hemisphere has constructed. My right hemisphere has built a world based on the data that it's compiled, and then the left hemisphere makes sense of that model, not of the actual world, which is why it can be so difficult to talk to other people who are processing different models of the world. So the left hemisphere, looking out at the world, looking out at the game, says, yeah, we need to change this game. We're going to change those goalposts, and let's get rid of these balls. We're going to use frisbees. And these uniforms, oh my God, they are so outdated. Totally doing new uniforms. And this field, what's up with this field? We're going to completely change the field as well. We're going to change the game, folks. But the left hemisphere essentially just arrived on the scene ready to play the game. They didn't see how that field came to be. They didn't see how those balls came to be, or the goals, or the uniforms, or the rules of the game. They didn't create any of that. They just showed up, got out of their car and said, oh, look at that, there's a field, let's go play a game. It's the right hemisphere that did all the heavy lifting, that created the structure. And it's the right hemisphere that has the power to change it, not the left. But the left, using language and will statements, I will do this, I'm going to do that, thinking that matters, is usually left frustrated and angry and often self-loathing because it doesn't understand that it's not all there is to you. The left really doesn't know about the right. And the left hates the fact that it doesn't have control over your entirety. So this gentleness practice arising out of my education of the brain is really about sitting down as the left hemisphere and saying, wait a minute, I'm not in control. I accept that. I allow that. And I'm going to allow the right hemisphere to do what it does, and maybe I'm going to work with what it does rather than against it. I'm not trying to force it to do my bidding, because that really makes no sense when you understand the brain. The I, or the my, it's like your toe thinking that it owns your entire body and that the rest of your body should do your toe's bidding. No, to toe. Just go, yo. All right, I'm going to go upstairs and get some work done. See ya. It's Sunday, which means family brunch. But this time, rather than having it at my family's house, we're having it at my younger sister's house with her husband and 2 nieces. And my mom said she's going to bring some vegan goodies for me. I don't know what that is, but we'll find out. Hey, Nunu. Oh, Nunu.
Is it Nina?
Mm-hmm. Hi, Noon. What you doing, Sharky? Gonna go pee on the car? Oh, big shark. Hey, I was joking. Hey, Gigi.
Pretty Gigi.
My dad's up there on the hill telling the story of how he fell through the ice here on the lake and how his jacket filled with air and ballooned up and brought him back to the surface, saved his life. So he wrote LL Bean and told them the story.
Knowing it was worth 30 grand then, and for another...
I just left my sister's house where we had Sunday brunch, and my mom made what she called special, she used that word, special pumpkin banana peanut butter muffins. And they were special, they were delicious, but she called them a failure because she didn't grease the cupcake or muffin thingy, so they stuck because I don't want things to be greased. And I just scooped them out with a spoon, which was fine, but she thought they were a disaster. The best feature on the whole property is what looks like a giant brick wall on this side, but on the other side you see that it's an orangerium. So way back in the day, they used to grow oranges in here, and the sun would keep them nice and toasty. But they haven't grown oranges here in a long time. The hills are alive. with the sound of some guy running. So I just finished dinner and I'm in the car about to head to the studio. It's cold and dark. And I'm in a pretty familiar situation, so I thought I would capture it here. I have no interest whatsoever to go back to the studio and work or do elliptical or even just drive in a car. My body right now is telling me stay home, go to bed early. My family, I'm sure, would love me to participate in their game night, which is a Sunday evening thing. It's been a while since I've done a game night. And there's a lot of pull for me to stay here. So why am I here in the car and about to go into town to the studio? It's about a 7-minute drive. Because that's my commitment. Now, do I have to use force or discipline or willpower to honor that commitment? No. All I have to do is walk outside, touch the door handle, open it, get in the seat right here, and sit for a minute. And that's what I did before I turned the camera on. I was sitting here like I often do at night with no interest, no desire, and I just wait. I wait until I'm comfortable sitting in the car, until it feels safe. Then I turn the car on. And I sit for a moment, not too long, I don't want to waste gas. Then I get out my headphones, put them on, start a book, and slowly make my way into town. But as I do, I engage in the road and I engage in listening to the book. And the book actually makes me more attentive to the road, which is kind of a neat thing because I'm really attentively listening and that makes my vision attentive also. So I think audiobooks are good for people who are driving if you're actually really trying to pay attention. Anyway, when I get to the studio, I'm going to go through a similar process. I'm not going to rush right into activity. I'm going to move into a particular location, probably where my computer is. I'm going to sit down and I'm just going to get comfortable there for a few minutes. And I'm going to see what my body wants to do. What is it inclined to do? Where do my fingers go? Where do my eyes go? Am I going to be compelled towards changing into my elliptical outfit and getting on the machine? Am I going to be compelled towards doing some editing or maybe labeling notes? I've got about 100 notes that need labeling. So I don't know until I get there. And that's how every evening goes for me, because evenings are tough. I'm not an evening person. I'm a daylight person, especially winter evenings because they're so long and dark and cold. But using my gentle process, I get through them. And eventually the light comes back and the snow comes and I'm a happy camper. The mama just came over to see me and she sounds happy. Thank you, Mama. Thank you for gracing me with your attention. Sweet little mama. Yeah, cute girl.